when I say binging, I was probably eating off 3,000 calories at a time, and mainly, just so let's say I'd go to the store and I would eat, get like three or four things that were really bad for me in terms of a bag of chocolate and donuts, sometimes ice cream, like especially if it's a night thing. So every craving would be a little bit different, but it was just kind of what would satisfy me in the moment, right? And I'd usually leave there with a bunch of food. It wouldn't just be like one thing. It's like you're having one chocolate bar. It'd be truly a binge. I'd be eating a lot of food, and I would hammer that food. Um, but it was like a double stress at that point because like I'm supposed to be an expert at this. I'm supposed to be a nutrition coach, and then I'm sitting over here doing this. So I couldn't. It was shameful. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I really hid it for a long, long time. Hey guys, today's just going to be a solo cast. Today I'm going to talk about a topic that's a little raw. A little raw is an understatement for me, but it's going to be a topic that I think can be very important, specifically to an entrepreneurial male, and something I've struggled with probably since I was 24, and I'm 39. So it's about a 15-year run. I've been working about this or working on this. And so let's get into today. Today I'm going to talk about emotional binge eating, specifically from the entrepreneur perspective. So why am I talking about this in today's podcast? Specifically because I think there aren't a lot of people that talk about it. I think a lot of the hard charging males out there think it's a taboo topic. They're too good. They do everything right. They don't need to talk about this. As well as I think maybe not as many people struggle with it as some others do. And so it's definitely something I've struggled with. Like I said, 15 years now, and I don't know if there's an end in sight. I don't know if there honestly will ever be an end in sight of my emotional binge eating that I have struggled with. I would say consistently for 15 years. There's times where I've done a really good job where I've gone a decent amount of time without doing it, but for the most part, it's consistent into my monthly routine. So let's dive into this and talk about it more on an entrepreneurial scale. Like, how does it affect it? So one of our 10 domains is physical dominance. And inside of physical dominance is being focused on your nutrition. And so to give you guys some background on the physical dominance side is the idea is you want to be good on your health. You want to be focused on where you're going with things. You need to make sure that you have a plan to make sure you're the healthiest version of yourself so that you can be around for a long time for both your business and your family. So that's big picture, right? Very easy. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be dominant. I'm going to dominate all this stuff because I am disciplined. I think a lot of entrepreneur men are super disciplined. I mean, I would say all of them are super disciplined. We just have different aspects that we're disciplined in. And I think for the most part is because we're so disciplined in, let's say, our organization's a skill set of yours. You follow your marketing plan to a T. Everybody around you sees you as a leader and you're disciplined in these certain areas. So like, oh man, they would never mess up your nutrition. That's simple. It's easy to eat right. And for the most part, you would think that's true. But I'm going to go through my story and kind of explain what I've gone through. And then from there, kind of how I've worked through it and my background of why I, in certain ways, am an expert on this. So let's go ahead and start about my story. So first of all, my history is I used to own a gym. I technically still own the gym, but I don't do much inside of it. I used to, I'm a personal trainer. I'm a certified nutrition coach. I have all the certifications on the nutrition side. Why did I go down that route? Well, I went down that route because I have struggled with food control since I was 16 years old, maybe 13. When I say food control at that point, it wasn't binge eating. It was just I was an overweight kid. And so because of that, I wanted to find a way to get better at that. I didn't really understand why I would snack on foods here and there. I know my mom hasn't hit a history with not eating the cleanest. And I always thought, well, my mom doesn't eat great. So that's kind of my issue. But as I got older and older, I started to realize that I wanted to have more control of this. So I went down the route of becoming a personal trainer. I was a high school football player. I wanted to get better at fitness and strength and stuff for football. So I went down that route and went into college to become an exercise scientist. So the farther and farther I went down that route, I just fell in love with it. I loved the process. I loved following through with it. My nutrition got really dialed in. I was super happy. By 22, I was crazy fit. Leaving the college, thought I was going to open a gym, and in many ways, that was the goal. But I didn't end up doing that because my dad, he owns a manufacturing corporation, and he needed help there. And I didn't, I'm from a small town in Iowa. I'd moved back to that town. There weren't a lot of jobs there, so I was okay. Let's go ahead and do this manufacturing job. So I became the vice president of his manufacturing corporation and ran the whole factory. The factory was an amazing experience. I did that for 4 years, but there was a lot of stresses along with it. And this is when my binge eating first started. So this component, it's kind of, my binge eating, in my opinion, has changed over the years on what has triggered it. But every single time that these situations have changed, I still use food as a supplement for that. When I was in working for my dad's corporations, when I first started flaring up, and I had a lot of stresses. One, I was working for my family, and my siblings worked there as well. So there's a lot of family-based stress around that. You're trying to build a company together. You have a lot of misaligned values. We have a lot of misaligned concepts, and I'm a hard charger, and my siblings aren't always as hard charging as I am. So because of that, I pushed them really hard, and that didn't always rub everybody the right way. And that would lead to me having a lot of emotional feelings about that. Not being able to push and challenge people around me was stressful. And I started to lean into snacks a little bit at that point. So I was still working out a lot after work. I was, small town Iowa. Me and my buddies get together, work out at night. So it wasn't that my fitness fell to the side, but I started to find myself like just snacking consistently on chocolate and stuff at night. Specifically at that point, it was like Reese's. Reese's are like the kind of thing I went to. So I'd hammer bags of that just because it was like, oh man, this felt good. It felt like a nice release. Well, over 4 years, that really adds up. So every year that got a little bit more intense and a little bit more intense. I was also feeling some depression of living in small town Iowa. When I say small town, it's a town of 600. And so I wasn't married, hadn't found that forever person. So there's a lot of stress that goes involved with that too. I also knew I wasn't in my calling. I wanted to work in a capacity of my own, meaning I could build my own thing instead of just following in my dad's footprints. I want to build my own thing. So long story short, over those 4 years, I kind of started my binging habits, and it was truly stress related for me. It was the higher level of stress and anxiety I got from relationship based stress. It wasn't really business stress. When I say that, is like I wasn't worried about how big the business had grown. Business is something I've always been really good at, and I'm very strong at it. It was more the relationship stress between me and my siblings, and that kind of led, and as well as not having a relationship with a spouse or having a girlfriend at that time because of being a small town. So the stress kind of built up, and I ended up putting on. I probably started that in 20 when I was 22. I was probably 205 pounds and probably around 10% body fat. And I left there around 275 4 years later, and I have no clue on body fat, but I'd probably say it's probably in the high 30s at that point. So body fat really grew. So I decided to move over to Australia. Left that job, moved over to Australia to kind of get a reset. And that was my chance to kind of learn how to eat right, eat properly again, get back into fitness and do that. So I spent a year dropping the weight, ended up deciding I wanted to open a gym when I moved back to America. So I moved back to America, and then from there I opened my own gym with a couple business partners. So from there, like I was using the gym as a control mechanism, meaning I was like, well, if I have a gym, I'll always go work out, go eat healthy. But then the stress of entrepreneurship started kicking in too. And I would always keep going back to food, food, going back to food because it was an instant dopamine effect and it didn't take much time, right? It was a quick stress de-stressor. Meaning I could down a bag of, for me, it's usually sweets, right? Swedish fish or chocolate. So I would down a thing of that and like instantly have that initial release, like, oh, I feel better. I'd feel guilty right after that though too, and then have to work out harder. And it was like this endless cycle. And that just continued to get worse and worse, especially at this point, because now as authority figure in terms of health and nutrition, I trained a lot. So I was able to outwork a lot of that. And we moved a ton as coaches and stuff. So I didn't really gain a lot of body fat and I actually stayed relatively lean during my time doing that. I had definitely some yo-yos, and yo-yos usually came from higher levels of stress in the business. From opened the gym in 2014 through 2019, stayed relatively lean, but I was binging. When I say binging, I was probably eating off 3,000 calories at a time. Mainly, just so let's say I'd go to the store and I would eat, get like 3 or 4 things that were really bad for me in terms of a bag of chocolate and donuts, sometimes ice cream, like especially if it's a night thing. So every craving would be a little bit different, but it was just kind of what would satisfy me in the moment, right? And I'd usually leave there with a bunch of food. It wouldn't just be like one thing. It's like you're having one chocolate bar. It'd be truly a binge. I'd be eating a lot of food, and I would hammer that food. But it was like a double stress at that point because like I'm supposed to be an expert at this. I'm supposed to be a nutrition coach, and then I'm sitting over here doing this. So I couldn't. It was shameful. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I really hid it for a long, long time because I couldn't really talk about it. Then I eventually started talking to some clients about it because they were struggling with it, and I wanted to tell my story there and talk to them about it. But it's still kind of a taboo topic in fitness, so I never really talked about it outside of our gym. But inside of our gym, I had great conversations with people. And then 2020 hit. So when 2020 hit, gyms were hit really hard in COVID, and I was I think before COVID and like February 2020. I was probably 215, maybe 220, hovering around 12 to 14% body fat. So it was really lean, especially for like binging consistently. When I say consistently, I'm probably binging every 2 weeks, maybe every week, depending on how stressful it was. So it is a lot of extra calories a week. And then, but I would outwork it because I was training so much. And 2020 hit, and our world was upside down. And 2020, overcoming all that stuff, I've also put on a lot of weight. So I went from I think I like 255 is the last number I remember getting to at that point. But that was all stress and anxiety based. There was a lot of stress trying to figure that out. And so it's like a lot of people probably had some food issues at that point. I don't know how many people struggle specifically with binge eating. I think it's probably a bigger part of the population. So I did see a statistic the other day. It's like 20 to 30% of people struggle with binge eating, but like talking to people, probably a higher percentage. And I would say even a higher percentage of entrepreneurs struggle with that, specifically male entrepreneurs, because the stress level gets so high and you want this instant release. And food does give you that instant release. And that allows you to like eat this thing really quick and then I can go back to work. Because we just got to keep grinding, right? Keep grinding. And then as males, we just gain, 10, 15 pounds a year. And that really adds up to a lot of excess body fat. But, I was very shameful at that point. I couldn't figure out, like, man, now I'm doing this and the gym's dying. We finally got the gym back on pace, going in the right direction. My habits are back in place, using specifically 75 hard to really discipline myself. So then from that point, we're going to sell the gym eventually. I'm going to move to Arizona, which I did. And I got married during that time as well. So all these things are good. Realistically, there's a lot of stress during that time too, because moving, have to get the gym ready for me to moving, finding a home, all this stuff in a whole new area. We have nobody in Arizona. I'm dealing with the stress of family not wanting us to move or being upset about us moving. So that was a pretty stressful time. And by the time I kind of realized where I was at, it was probably about 270. And so the weight had just, I'd taken it back down from 75 hard down to the 230s. I'd climbed back up to 270. And it's kind of without realizing it when I was doing it. What I mean by that is when I was gaining the weight, it was because it's happening in these small chunks. Me and my wife eat relatively clean, but like when you throw in 3,000 calories unexpected from time to time, my wife wasn't even aware that I was eating those things because those would happen when she's not at work and I work from home. And so I put a lot of those calories in. And during that time, we were building our new company, Level Up and Brotherhood Beyond Business. Like we're building these new companies. The gym, trying to get to a point where it was functioning without me. So there's a lot of like business stresses that way. And I didn't think I was doing that bad with nutrition because we were eating so well for the most part. But no matter what, I would still run into these issues. And I tried every diet you can think of, meaning I tried carnivore because I thought, well, carnivore stopped binging, but there's still like the emotional release stress that it wasn't fixing. I need that from the business perspective. That was the part that was really stressful to me. And it's not like I wasn't having relationship stress. It was just more, and it wasn't even like a sales call or something like stress out about that. What it was really coming down to is like the overwhelming anxiety I was getting from like just so many things changing at once. And I've have to figure those out. So food has just always been a good release for that. So we moved in 2022 and still trying to figure it all out myself at that point. Three continued to, yeah, so this is 2020, continued to climb. And when my parents ended up staying with us for the winter for 3 months. And after my mom being here, my dad being here with all their foods that aren't the healthiest, I ballooned all the way to 295. And so beginning of 2024, I finally had a little bit of a wake up call and being like, well, 295, I can't believe that I'm at this. So me and my wife really tried to dial on nutrition and bring it down. Not to go into a full nutrition like component to it, but like realistically, my nutrition for the most part during all those times wasn't horrible. When my parents were here, it was probably the worst by far. But when my parents didn't live with us, my nutrition was overall pretty good, and so I couldn't really put the finger on that. But the idea is these binges were kind of, I knew they were happening, but they're hidden even to myself. Like I was trying to say, oh, I didn't, I didn't do that much. I didn't eat that much. So 2024 is when I first probably started to get really control of it and talk to myself about like what binging was and what am I doing. And I mean, I always knew I was binging. It's not like I'm ignorant to that. And I tried to read books and stuff, but it was kind of figuring out, I need to figure out a long-term plan for this. How do I overcome this binging and anxiety? So that's my story. I just had no control over binging. And it was all stress induced. I've said to my wife or friends, like, I don't have a lot of stress in my life. I manage things so well. In ways, I don't have stress in the ways that some other people do. I don't get stressed out about things. Like, I don't have breakdowns from them, but my breakdowns are food related, meaning like, no, I don't like go complain about these things. I don't really do a lot of complaining in general, but the food would give me that instant satisfaction, that release, and that was a breakdown, right? And so I'd break down from that, and I didn't really have any solutions for that. Um, no matter what different diets I've tried, it just none of them seem to quench it. I lose massive amounts of weight, 50 pounds at a time. All this time knowing that I'm extremely disciplined. Most people that know me are surprised that I struggle with this because I'm an extremely disciplined person in so many ways. My calendar is completely organized. I do like to have like control over my life, control over the things going on. But this is one area that I'm very knowledgeable about. Nutrition is something I read consistently. I've dove into every different kind of diet out there. I've learned all the different aspects of nutrition. And it's like, man, I cannot figure this component out. It's not that I don't understand nutrition. I just haven't really come to grips, or at this time I hadn't come to grips with why I do these binges and how to overcome them. Actionable stuff. So 2024 is when I started to do actionable stuff. And this is when I first had to start switching my mindset. So at this point, if you're to this point, hopefully story's been slightly relatable to you, or you've run into these situations and you're like, okay, I'm maybe not as bad as Trevor is, but I've dealt with some of these things, or maybe it's even way worse. And no means is it not medical advice. I have not fixed my binge eating. I've just kind of found ways to improve it, and that's what the next part of the talk is going to be about. How have I improved it? So in 2024, we just started to meal plan consistently, right? So going back to old school nutrition principles, we meal plan consistently. Me and my wife follow a meal plan from 2024, all year 2024. We followed the meal plan really close. But the issue was I was still having these binges every so often. So no matter how close my meal plan was, I was binging. And so I started talking to myself like, what are the things I could do that would eliminate the binging? So most of the things were trying to eat less sugar, more protein, write everything I can about all the different ways I can reduce my A1C. And so going through these patterns, like, oh, this will help reduce the binging. But the binging was still happening because it wasn't because my blood glucose was high. It was an emotional response. And so I was having these moments where I just couldn't really figure out how to overcome this. And I was just kind of succumbed to the fact that, hey, I'm just going to have to deal with this and have to find a way to outwork it, right? Like I used to do. I used to outwork it. And so I was trying to train harder in 2024, work out more. We go for more walks. We go for more hikes, like play pickleball, all these things. But I still like my weight was hovering. So I dropped in 2024, I went from 295 to 275. So 20 pounds, right? So most people are like, oh, that's a pretty good year. And that is probably more like I didn't really start working on it until April. So not even a full year, 9 months. So, worked on that 20 pounds. So it's not bad. And I'm like, oh, if I keep following this plan for year after year, I'll be good. I didn't want to continue to have this issue with binging because I feel like I feel completely out of control. I felt it's an out of body experience. Like, oh, it's just don't eat this food, badass, right? Like, and it's way easier said than done. Anybody that's never struggled with binging really doesn't understand this thing. I've never been an alcoholic. I've never been addicted to cigarettes, anything of that nature. So I can't really compare it to those things. But it feels like I don't have control in certain situations when my brain chemistry kind of takes over and says, hey, like you got to have this. And it's like this nagging feeling in the back of your head where you're just like, I cannot like think, I can't focus until I get this thing. We personally have no sweets in our house. There's not a single thing in the house you could consider a sweet. I mean, we do have ice cream every night, but that ice cream is a protein ice cream that we hand make, and then they're creamy. So there's like almond milk and lactose milk and protein powder. That's all that goes into it. Lactose free milk. That's all that goes into it. So it's like you can't binge on that. Ice cream has to be made a day beforehand. And worst case of binge on that, I think our ice cream's 88 calories. So it's like there's no negative that, but that it wouldn't fulfill that feeling because I need like this intense sugar rush from this. So as I kind of dealt with that in 2024 and realized, okay, I can keep just losing weight and just strong arming it, having a binge, At this point in 2024, I was probably binging every 6 to 8 days. Is probably how often it would happen. And it was, I really hadn't figured out why it was happening. I just had started paying attention to how often it was happening. Okay, well, if I'm having an extra 2,000 to 3,000 calories every, 6 to 10 days roughly, and then the extra calorie burn I have to create a week to do that, like I wasn't going to make progress very fast. So at the end of 2024, I decided to get a nutrition coach, and I used the First Form app, and my coach is Derek White. And so that's been eye-opening, right? Having an actual nutrition coach. I've never had a nutrition coach to be accountable to. And so that's been nice to have somebody in my corner, somebody that's helping me because, I'm an expert at this. So it's hard to ask for advice when you're an expert. And I needed somebody to rely on to kind of force me to get out of my comfort zone and kind of fix some of these things. So going into 2025, this is right now when I'm recording this is May 6th of 2025. How have I kind of moved forward with this? The first thing I had to do is come to realization of why I'm binging and what's happening and when are those moments happening. So first thing is I started to realize that these moments were happening when I felt overwhelmed in my calendar. My tendency to, my model is I schedule out my entire week and then I know what I need to be doing every minute. Sounds great, but then all of a sudden our business isn't picking up. And we work with plumbers and marketing, and so our business is picking up, and so I'm having way more sales meetings. Well, that's throwing off all my schedule. My schedule is getting thrown off more and more, and I started to realize those were the moments I was getting overwhelmed, as when unpredictability came in the schedule, and I can't. That's forever. Business is unpredictable. Well, I've been dealing with this since I was 22, meaning like I have unpredictable stuff happening all the time, and other people are dictating my schedule, and that drives me insane. And so because of that, it's like, okay, now I've got to figure out a way to make this so I'm having less anxiety-based moments. So a couple things that I put in place for this is one, when I'm having an anxiety-based moment during the day, I try to call my business partner and just like, hey, I'm a little anxious about this thing. And so first step was I need to get support. My support was my business partner or is my business partner. And so calling him or one of my many business partners in different businesses that I own, calling one of them and just talking about the stress based on the business. So it's like in Level Up, if it's I'm having too many sales calls and I need help with these. Or jump on a call, talk to Nathan, like, hey, buddy, I'm struggling with this component right now. And I need to I feel a little bit overwhelmed and we'll talk through it. And I try to do that as soon as I'm feeling overwhelmed because that usually will reduce that anxiety that I have and the binge won't happen. I also will email my business coach or my nutrition coach. And so my nutrition coach, I'll be like, hey, I'm struggling with this component right now. I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's the biggest thing from him is giving me other ways to overtake that, like going out for a walk and doing a walk. That's been those two different strategies have been successful, have helped out. And then just being honest with my wife too and talking to her about it. First is the stage I'm in right now is just opening up to people more about the fact that I'm binging, and that's why I decided to do this video. It's just me rambling about the struggle, and I'm hoping that some entrepreneurs hear this and just you're not alone. I don't have a solution for you, honestly. You're not alone. I'm working through solutions. If I ever figure it out, I'll let you know, but I don't even know if it's 100% figure outable, but the idea is I just feel comfortable talking about it now that I struggle with it all the time. By doing these reaching out to my business partners, have a nutrition coach, as well as talking to my wife about this takes binges so far, just kind of roughly calculating that over this year. It's only been five months, probably binging once every 21 days. So that time frame has opened up farther. And I've been trying to pay attention after the binges. So there are a couple things. I pay attention to when the binge happens. So after the binge happens, I try to sit down and okay, why did, because I'm pretty clear about an hour after I binged. I'm pretty clear minded and I can take a moment of, okay, what just happened? Why did I just do this? What's the thing going on? So I sit there and think about it okay, this is the thing I think that triggered it. Sometimes it's something that not just that morning, it was something that triggered the night before, 2 days before. So what's the first thing that's triggering it? For the most part, this year, most of the stuff's been just the growth of the businesses, and I've been triggered by the growth of the businesses and feeling like imposter syndrome because we're in a new space, and so imposter syndrome is a little bit nerve wracking. So I had some anxiety from that for sure. Business wise, I'm having some anxiety just from growth. Like growth is awesome, but growth also breaks systems, and then you have to fix those systems in a new system, new sales opportunities and talking to new people about all these opportunities you have. That's awesome stuff to have, but it doesn't not cause stress, And so struggling with those. So I sit down and figure out what those moments are, what's causing those, and just helping myself prepare for when those moments might come in the future and talking to my business partners specifically, usually talking to them about the things that I see coming forward that might cause us stresses and cause me stresses, and just being willing to call them and talk to them more about that. Then it's also being honest in my meal planning. So we meal plan for the whole week, but when I fill out my daily macros for my coach and put all my food in, it was originally I wasn't being honest about the days that were going wrong. I was just on a day that I'd eat a binge, I would track my normal stuff that I was supposed to eat that day, and then I would just work my ass off because I'm a hard worker, right? An entrepreneur, former fitness guy. We have a huge garage gym. I have every tool you can dream of. Like, it's not like I can't outwork this, but so like, man, I put a hell of a lot of work in to overcome this because I didn't want my weight to really adjust. And the coach would be like, oh, he's not being honest. And so then I had to be being accountable to me and to Derek about the fact that I am having these struggles and like he can help me with tips for that. So next part was accountability, putting it in. And the nice part about doing that consistently this year has been after I have a binge, sometimes during the binge, I'm to the point where I can actually pause time and be like, Trevor, you don't need any more, right? I was just like, whatever I bought in food, I would finish. Now it's like I'll get through like one or two of the things that I bought. So an example, the other day I went out and bought 3 donuts, 2 things of red vines, like the smaller package of red vines, and a caramel apple. Random foods, right? It's just like whenever you walk in the store, what do you see? That's kind of how it hits me. And so get home, you start binging on the donuts first, right? You eat the donuts, one of the red vines, and the caramel apple. And it's like I was able to like, okay, I have another thing of red vines. But in the moment, kind of like, I'm good. I don't need any more. Throw the red vines away. That's an extra 500 calories I saved there. So I put that in, and I took a minute, kind of caught myself like, okay, let's put this into my app and see what happened. And so calorie wise, that was, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like 1,100 calories, something like that. Not horrible. The worst binge by any means. But then what I did is, okay, and I adjusted how the rest of my day to making sure I still had good protein levels in. I got rid of extra carbs in day. And realistically, that day I was like I ended up being 600 calories over what I was supposed to be. So starting off with a binge, not bad. Now I didn't hit my macros, I didn't hit the protein levels I was supposed to hit. I was way over my fats for sure, or carbs over the two. I can't remember which one I was way over on. I was way over on one of those categories, but I felt control because I'm like, I'm only 600. Like I only went over 600. That's pretty good. Like that's a win for me on a binge. And so it's trying to be able to be honest about this tracking, putting that stuff in, and then weighing myself every day after that. Most people like avoid the weight, but I want to weigh myself. I want to see the damage that I did to myself so that I can continue. Like, okay, I don't want this to happen again when one of those binges happens. Okay, none of these are real solutions. Meaning, I'm not like, oh man, this is how you solve binge eating. No clue. I'm not a therapist. I'm not somebody that deals with this. I just know what I'm going through and the struggles I'm going through. And if you're an entrepreneurial male and you're struggling with these kind of things, this is stuff we do talk about in the Brotherhood. Like this conversation I had, we were just at a live meeting, and I talked to people there that this is something I'm struggling with. And a lot of them, some of them were aware because I've talked about it in the past, but ones that hadn't were kind of eye-opening. Like, can't believe you struggle with that. It wasn't that they struggled with binge eating, but helped them have conversations about things that even though they're extremely disciplined, entrepreneurs are extremely disciplined in ways that we don't always realize we're disciplined in, right? And so they would bring up, here's the thing, like I'm disciplined. Example for one of them was I'm super disciplined in every aspect, except for when it comes to organizing my task list. Because my task list, I just put everything in there. And I felt overwhelmed by that. And then he gets anxiety from that overwhelming. And then for him, it's not a food-based thing. Um, just anxiety, and then he maybe wants to smoke some weed or something, or do something of that nature to kind of help calm himself down. We're using different devices or different vices to do that. Mine's food. Some people's cigarettes. Some people's are marijuana. There's alcohol, right? So there's a lot of vices out there, and I think most people have a vice. I think unfortunately most people do have vices, and we just got to find ways on why we have these vices. I don't know if every vice is bad at all times, but the idea is, what are we doing that causes us to have to overuse that vice? Even caffeine can be a vice for a lot of people. So what are these things we can overcome? I think I just want to put it out to the world that this is something I struggle with. I'm an entrepreneurial male that is disciplined in so many ways. And I'm very proud of how disciplined I am. I take pride in it. It's something I'm very strong at. But in the physical dominance domain, it's an area where I need to improve. If I would rank my nutrition on days that I don't binge, I'm like in the 95 percentile in our nutrition. Me and my wife are dialed in and hit our macros every single day. We are very like religious eaters, meaning like we eat the same thing every single day. Dialed in, foods are good. We enjoy our food meal plans. None of it feels like restricted. We have ice cream, all the good stuff. But so it's not really a nutrition issue for me. It's an emotional stress part. And so that's why I really struggle with it. I think it's something that I need to continue to find a way to battle those and take moments and get those wins. So my wins right now are going, how long can I go without a binge? For me, 21 days, 3 weeks without binging, that's super winning right now. And I'm very happy with that. Now I'm hoping to eventually fix it in the long run. But if I could get to this point, weight loss is going to happen. Well, I'm going to feel more in control. But I do feel after I have a big binge, man, I feel like I'm back at square one every single time. I'm like, how did I do this as a kid? I just went 21 days without any issues, because I do track this now. And so it's like, I went 21 days without any issues. Now I do this. Like, come on, man. Like, you're back at square one again. And let's say during that 3 weeks, I lost 5 pounds. Well, then you go step on the scale and you're up. From there, you're 6 pounds heavier than you just were. Like, oh crap. And I know that's going to come back down because I didn't overdo calories, but I have a lot of information from this. And so it feels like I lost all over again. So it's something I do want to fix. I want to feel in control of that. But I also have to continue to work on other things where I need to control my schedule better. I need to get smarter about like not having to be overly scheduled. Work on some of my control issues with my schedule too. So these are other things I'm working through. Again, if this is something you struggle with, Brotherhood Beyond Business, that's what we're here to have these conversations. I'd love to discuss this with anybody that does have an issue with this. I'd love to jump on a call and just see what you're struggling with. Now, again, I'm not going to sit there and explain to you how to overcome, even though I am still currently a certified nutrition coach. I'm not going to discuss on how to fix your binge eating. I'm just going to talk about anxiety and things of that nature and see if in the Brotherhood there's other things that we can help you with. Because what we do focus on is we do help people build a passion-based business. We help them grow that business. We really put a lot of effort on the life side of things because I think most entrepreneurs are really good at business and they're really doing business because it's a game for them. It's something that keeps them motivated, keeps that competition side there. Well, because of this, we really enjoy the business side, so we get so engaged in that. But the other parts of life, if we can get those figured out, if we can get those dialed in, we're going to be better business owners. We're going to also be better husbands, better friends. So we need to figure out the whole aspect of life and really become the CEO of your own life. So guys, I hope this again hit some people the right way, or for some people that it hit a different way, just realizing, hey, people really do struggle with this stuff, even at a high level. It's not just for people that look like maybe they're obese, like, oh, they have this problem. I mean, in certain times I have been obese. Right now I don't feel obese. I feel like I'm in an obese category, but I struggle with this all the time. So it is something to think about and just be patient with other people that are struggling with it. And if you are going through it, just know you're not going through it alone. A lot of us struggle with it and we'll continue to like work forward and move forward. Have a great day, guys.
Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in. Brotherhood is more than business. It's about leading from the front, leveling up in every domain, and becoming the CEO of your own life. Step up, execute, and we'll see you in the next one.